I found out about the will on a Tuesday afternoon. Not from my parents, not from my brother, from a lawyer, and not even directly. I overheard a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear, between my mom and a family attorney, while I was sitting in the next room waiting to have lunch with her. I heard my name once, and then I heard what came after it. Nothing. Literally nothing. As in, my name was mentioned, and what followed was silence. And then the lawyer said, "And the remainder goes to the eldest." I sat there with my fork in my hand, and didn't move for probably 2 full minutes. Then I put the fork down, picked up my bag, and left without saying goodbye. My name is Riley. I'm the youngest, the only girl, and for as long as I can remember, that combination meant one thing in my family: invisible when it was convenient, present when I was needed. Growing up, my brother Davis got everything first. The car, the trust, the benefit of the doubt. When Davis wanted to go to a private college across the country, my parents figured it out. When I got into a school to states over a better school, actually my mom sat me down and said maybe I should consider staying closer to home. So I stayed closer to home. I went to a state school 40 minutes away, got a degree in accounting, got a job at a firm downtown, rented an apartment 15 minutes from my parents' house, because, and I want you to really hear this part, because they asked me to. "It would mean so much to us to have you nearby, Riley." And I said yes, because I always said yes. Davis, meanwhile, moved to Seattle right after college. Started some kind of tech consulting thing. Came home for Christmas and Thanksgiving if he felt like it, which was maybe every other year. Called on birthdays when he remembered. He was the oldest, the son, the one the whole family orbit seemed to rotate around even when he wasn't in the room. I was just the one in the room. About 3 years before the will situation, things started to shift financially for my parents. My dad had some health issues, nothing life-threatening, but the kind of slow, expensive health situation that quietly drains savings over time. My mom had cut back her hours. The house, which they'd owned for over 20 years, suddenly felt less like an asset and more like a weight. And somehow, without any formal conversation, without anyone actually sitting me down and asking, I became the one who handled it. It started with the water heater. It broke in February, and my dad mentioned it on a Sunday call. And I said, "I'll take care of it," like I always did. And I called a plumber and paid the invoice. Then the roof started leaking in one corner of the garage. I hired someone, paid for it. Then the mortgage payment was short 1 month. My parents were embarrassed about it, barely mentioned it, but I caught it in a conversation and quietly transferred the difference. Then it happened again. And then it became a pattern. Over 3 years, I covered the mortgage shortfall 11 times, paid 4 repair bills, covered the utilities twice when things got tight, helped my mom's car get fixed when the transmission went. I never kept a running total. I wasn't doing it to keep score. I was doing it because they needed help, and I was there, and I had the means, and I loved them. That's the part I want you to understand about me. I wasn't doing any of this out of obligation or resentment. I genuinely, wholeheartedly just wanted to help. That's important, because it makes what came next hurt so much more. After I left my mom's house without saying goodbye, I drove to my apartment, sat on my couch, and stared at the wall for a long time. Then I called my mom. I didn't yell. I didn't cry, not yet. I just said, very calmly, "Ma, I need you to tell me about the will." On pause. "Where did you hear about that?" "That doesn't matter. Just tell me." Another pause. And then she said it. The thing I already knew but needed to hear out loud anyway. "Riley, your brother is going to inherit the house and the savings and the land. We talked about it a long time ago. It just makes sense. He's the oldest, and he has a family." I said, "So do I. I have a life. I have needs." She said, "You're so capable, honey. You've always figured things out. Davis needs more support." I said, "Davis lives in Seattle and calls twice a year. I've been paying your mortgage." Silence. Then she said the sentence that I will never forget for the rest of my life. "You don't need it as much as he does." I hung up. I called my friend Mara that night and told her everything. She listened to the whole thing, and when I finished, she was quiet for a second, and then said, "Riley, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know yet, but I already knew. I just needed to sleep on it first." I want to be honest about something. The decision I made wasn't made in anger. I know it might sound like it was in look. There was anger. There was a lot of anger, but what I actually felt more than anger was this very clear, very cold clarity, like something snapping into focus. For 3 years, I had been the invisible daughter who happened to also be the financial backbone of my family's life. And I had done it happily, or at least willingly, because I believed that's what family meant. And what I learned on that Tuesday afternoon was that my family had a different definition. To them, family meant Davis got the house, and Riley got to feel good about being helpful. So I made a decision, quietly, without telling anyone. I was done. Not done forever, not done as a daughter, but done paying, done fixing, done being the one who answers the call at 8 p.m. on a Saturday when the furnace makes a weird sound. I didn't call my parents and announce it. I didn't send a long email. I didn't confront Davis, who I'm sure knew exactly what was in that will, and never once thought to mention it to me. I just stopped. Stopped transferring money. Stopped scheduling repairmen. Stopped quietly covering the gap every time something came up short. I just let go. The first 2 weeks were quiet. I went to work, saw my friends, started cooking more, which sounds random, but I'd been so stressed for so long that basic things like making dinner had kind of fallen away. I took a weekend trip with Mara to a cabin upstate. First real trip I'd taken in 2 years. I turned my phone down and genuinely felt my shoulders drop about 3 inches. And then, right on schedule, the messages started. Week 3. My dad texted about the water bill being overdue. I read it. Didn't respond. 4 days later, my mom texted that the electricity might get cut off if the account wasn't topped up. I read it. Put my phone face down on the counter, made myself a cup of coffee, went to bed. Week 5. The mortgage was due. My mom texted me at 7 a.m. on a Wednesday. No greeting. No good morning, honey. Hope you're doing well. Just, the mortgage is due Friday. I stared at that message for a long time. And then I typed 2 words. Ask him. Sent. Put the phone down. No response came. Davis called me on a Sunday. For the first time in probably 4 months. His name came up on my screen, and I almost didn't pick up. But I did. Because I wanted to hear what he was going to say. Hey, Riley. How are you? I'm good, Davis. You? Yeah, good. Hey, so, Mom mentioned there's been some stuff going on with the house payments. Is everything okay? I leaned back in my chair. Everything's fine on my end. Pause. Oh, so you're not helping out right now? No, another pause. Longer. Oh, okay. Is there a reason, or? And here's the thing, I had this whole speech prepared in my head. Pages of it, honestly. 3 years of receipts and mortgage transfers and 8 p.m. repair calls and Christmas visits where I cooked the whole dinner and nobody said thank you. I had all of it ready. But in that moment, I didn't feel like giving the speech. I just said, "Isn't it your house, Davis?" Silence. Long silence. I mean, technically, yeah, but then you should probably take care of it. And I hung up. Here's what happened over the next 2 months. The mortgage fell behind. Not into foreclosure, not that dramatic, but behind enough that my parents had to have a real conversation with the bank for the first time in years, instead of quietly waiting for Riley to cover it. The furnace did make a weird sound, by the way. In November, my dad called me about it. I gave him the name of the repair company I always used and told him to call them directly. He did. He figured it out. My mom called me 4 times in October. Each time, I let it go to voicemail. Each time, the message was some version of Riley, "We really need to talk." The 5th time, I picked up. She started to say something about the payments, about how things were getting difficult, about how she hoped I understood they never meant to make me feel, and I said, "Mom, I love you, but I'm not the solution to a problem that was created without me." She started crying. And I sat with that. I didn't hang up. I didn't soften it. I just sat with it on the line and let it be true. We talked for another 20 minutes. It wasn't a resolution. It wasn't an apology, exactly. But it was real in a way our conversations hadn't been in a long time. Davis flew home in December. First time in 18 months. I found out through my mom. I didn't go to the house that trip. First Christmas I'd spent somewhere else since I was 17. Mara and I did a Friendsgiving situation at her place. Her family, my friend group, good food, zero obligation. I made a sweet potato dish that everyone asked for the recipe for. It was the most relaxed holiday I'd had in years. Here's where I've landed. I don't hate my parents. I've thought about this a lot, really sat with it, and the honest answer is no. They're people from a generation and a culture where the oldest son inheriting made a certain kind of sense to them. They made a decision that felt logical from inside their own framework, without fully reckoning with what it said to me. That doesn't make it okay, but it makes it something I can understand without it consuming me. What I do feel clearly, cleanly, without apology is done. Done being the safety net for people who didn't include me in their safety plan. Done being so reliably present that my presence became invisible. Done making myself smaller so that Davis could keep taking up the same amount of space from 2,000 miles away. My relationship with my parents is different now. More honest, actually. Fewer phone calls, but the ones we have are real. My mom said something to me a few months ago that surprised me. She said, "I think I took you for granted." She didn't go further than that. She's not really built for more than that. But she said it, and I heard it. And I'm choosing to hold on to that version of her instead of the one who said I didn't need it as much as he did. Davis and I talk maybe once a month now. It's cordial, fine. We're never going to be close, and I've made peace with that. He's managing the house now. My parents' finances are his responsibility now, which is what it should have been all along. And me? I have an apartment that's fully mine. A savings account that I'm not quietly draining to cover someone else's mortgage. A Friendsgiving tradition that I plan to keep for the rest of my life. And I have this thing that I didn't have for a long time, this very simple, very solid sense of knowing my own worth. Not because someone handed it to me, because I stopped handing it away. They made their choice, and for the first time I made mine.